This is Alex Glenn, and we're back to highlight another actionable marketing automation system for you to implement in your funnel. In this episode, my guest and I are going to show you how to be very strategic with your top of funnel prospect segmentation and, of course, automate it. This allows you to not only increase conversion rates, but manage post-lead capture nurturing efforts to increase ROI from all traffic campaigns. My guest today is Axel Lavergne, Head of Growth for Sendinblue, a marketing platform with email marketing, SMS, and marketing automation all rolled up into one. The category of email marketing, as you know, it's a crowded space, so there's a lot to consider. Now, Sendinblue stands out by offering marketers and teams a suite of tools around messaging, so you can not only have all of the systems working together, but you can accomplish full funnel messaging. So we're talking about content management, we're talking about marketing automation, we're talking about transactional. So if you're considering MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, Customer.io, it's worth checking out Sendinblue. Axel, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us the premise of today's automation?
90%
Conversational marketing.
They didn't see you,
I
man.
think a real game changer.
The marketing automation discussion.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. So the idea of this automation is really to help you automate your data enrichment at a top of funnel stage. So you can use it at scale and possibly increase your conversion rates by achieving better segmentation. So for example, if you just released an ebook or any kind of gated content, or if you get newsletter opt-ins, you're looking to capture those leads and you're looking to convert them, but you're a bit too far from conversion. So you're going to have to nurture those leads and work on them before you can actually send them to your sales.
I love it. So you mentioned a couple things there, and really important is CRO. It's not mentioned a lot on this podcast. That's not the purpose of our podcast, to teach you how to convert, but we want to mention that. And you mentioned asking the right questions, making sure the user can understand right away that there's purpose for asking that question. That means you do not want to ask your users, hey, are you a WordPress user? They'll have to try to think about why you're asking that. That could draw red flags in their mind. It could just present some problems for you on the CRO side of things. So you don't ask them about their tech stack. You want to ask them relevant questions like, hey, how can I connect with you? What's your email? What are your biggest problems with marketing right now? Any of those things that you can't programmatically decipher, get those out of the way at the top of the funnel. This keeps conversion rates high. And then on the back end, we leverage technology like Clearbit to enrich the data that they provide, meaning take the URL off of the end of their email and go and find out what their tech stack is, find out their location of their company, find out any other information you can, but do it programmatically, do it behind the scenes so that you can keep the top of the funnel very light and low fidelity. So let's go into the tech stack. So let's find out what it takes to run this automation. Axel, why don't you go ahead and explain the tools necessary to get this thing done?
Sure. As you mentioned, we're going to be using three services, essentially. The first one is Sendinblue, and specifically the marketing automation platform, which will allow you to centralize all of your contact information. Actually, you can even start from the opt-in by sending contacts directly to Sendinblue through the forms that we provide and stuff. And then from within the marketing automation platform, you can, based on whatever the contacts do, so they subscribe to a list or that kind of thing, launch a webhook. So launch a call to a webhook that is within Integromat. So Integromat is, I like to call it the Zapier on steroids. It's sort of like Zapier, except as you mentioned, like you have some other options, one of which is collecting information through webhooks. So webhook is just a sort of something listening for data to where you can send data. And so from within the marketing automation platform at Sendinblue, we're going to send data to Integromat. And Integromat is going to send that data to Clearbit, listen to the answer from Clearbit, and send it back to Sendinblue. So it's just, the sort of the glue between Sendinblue and Clearbit. And then Clearbit, as you mentioned, is a really cool tool. And actually they released, I think quite recently, a combined endpoint that sort of combines the person and the company object. So if you call Clearbit with just an email, provided that it's a professional email, so with a domain name that's actually the company that you're targeting, Clearbit is going to be able to answer with information about that person. So anything from the LinkedIn account, their Twitter account, their a bunch of things about that person, and also information about the company, such as what tech they're using, what size the company is, all that kind of thing.
So now we have our stack. So just to recap here, we're going to be using the Sendinblue automation feature to set this system up. We're going to be using Clearbit to go ahead and enrich the data that we get pulled into the back end. And we're going to be using Integromat to connect the dots. And I'm showing a kind of rough version of this automation in the back end of the Sendinblue account. Why don't you just outline the steps to the automation?
The basic steps for this automation is, first of all, you acquire a lead. So you have to save it to a context database. We're going to be doing this in Sendinblue, so you can build a form in Sendinblue. You can acquire a lead, add it to several lists if you want to, with multiple checkbox opt-ins. Based on, first information that you get from that lead, depending on the form that you have, which could be just an email or more, you can start segmenting immediately based on that information. I mean, if you're looking at very high volume of lead capture, you might want to do this before you call Clearbit, because Clearbit, it can become expensive. So you might want to start segmenting right from the top and only call Clearbit for leads that you know are actually interesting to a given degree. After that, we're going to look at enriching the prospects that we want to nurture. You mentioned we're going to be calling Clearbit through Integromat, which is actually the connecting the dots, and you segment our nurturing sequence accordingly within Sendinblue's automation platform. And you can use transactional emails, you can use SMS, you can use other things potentially. Why not through Integromat too? You could follow them on LinkedIn, whatever you feel might be relevant at whatever point of your nurturing sequence.
So I'm a user and I am a B2B marketer. I have a need to capture leads, but the campaign is specific to a certain audience. As any marketing campaign goes, I mean, you want to be as targeted as possible, but you're going to get riffraff in that campaign. You're going to get people that don't belong in that campaign. So if I wanted to start to capture leads, segment them, I can treat them with some respect, meaning I don't know exactly what they're there for, but I know that they're not a high priority prospect. So I'm in that situation. So this would be a great automation for me. Now, post capture, post Clearbit enrichment, can you dive a little bit deeper into the Integromat process and what happens with that webhook?
Of course. So basically what we're doing is through the marketing automation platform, we're sending contact details to a webhook. That webhook is listening to data. So when it gets data from Sendinblue, it's going to execute whatever automation flow you have set up in Integromat. In this case, what it's going to execute is a GET request to Clearbit's API. So you can authenticate and everything from within Integromat. And whenever Integromat gets data from Sendinblue, it's going to call on Clearbit and request information. And the thing is actually a bit more complex than that. The thing is, Clearbit works in a very specific way. It gets a request. It's going to tell you to wait for a minute and send you the data back to another webhook. The reason they do this is because they don't have their data readily available and they don't want your systems to wait on an answer for like several seconds. So you just pass a webhook URL as a parameter, and then Clearbit is going to essentially answer with like a couple of seconds actually late, but it's just going to send the information to another webhook. So you have to set up that other webhook in Integromat, and then that webhook, as soon as it receives data, it's going to write directly into Sendinblue. There might be a bit of processing to do. I'm thinking, for example, you mentioned the tech stack. It's actually returned as an array. So you might have to identify a specific tag, for example. You can do that either within Integromat, either within Sendinblue. It really comes down to whichever tool you prefer, based on regular expressions or partial match or that kind of thing.
Got it. So in the automation that we have here, we have an if else is a WordPress user. That would be a situation where, hypothetical example is I'm selling WordPress plugin, or WordPress needs to be the integration for my product to work. So that would be a perfect example. Any other examples that you've seen? It's a pretty typical for this webhook and tech stack lookup.
You can use that for any integration that you offer and have sort of a much better tailored message. You can also use that, and that's a bit sneakier for any competitor, because you probably know exactly where your value lies compared to your competition. And that allows you to sort of tailor the message and have the right USP essentially. You could also use a number of different things, because Clearbit is going to tell you, anything from like size of company, location, which could also turn out to be useful. I don't know if you want to mention some use cases or some customers that you currently have. It's good that if they're local, you can check out the industry. You can check out, you can really use it for, there are a number of use cases. The one that I find most sort of relevant for whoever you're sending your email to is usually the tech stack. But that's mostly because I'm working at Sendinblue and we integrate with a lot of things. So it's sort of critical on our end. Depending on what you're selling, it could be very different.
In the situation where you have a lot of organic traffic, or you have a press release out, or you have a lot of social media activity going, this is a perfect funnel for you to use to go ahead and start segmenting that traffic in any way. If you have a lot of organic traffic, but you're only active in Illinois, or you're only active in France, or you're only active in one country, and you can't offer your services outside of that area, this is a perfect funnel for you to use. So instead of saying, okay, well, Clearbit, tell me their tech stack and funnel people right and left, depending on whether they're a WordPress user. Tell me if they're in the United States or in Illinois or in Chicago. And if they are, funnel them this way. And if they're not, funnel them that way. And you can do reverse sort of IP lookup, of course, on your site and have different content displayed based on XYZ. But this is a much easier way to say, okay, well, play some general information at top of funnel. But as soon as they come into your form, as soon as they come in as a prospect, as a lead, this system is going to automatically segment them so that they're routed accordingly. And this is an email automation. It could be an SMS, it could be whatever. But what we can also add to this is a Slack notification. So if Clearbit finds that, yeah, they're a WordPress user, but maybe they have a location that you're very interested in, or maybe they have another technology on their site, not just WordPress, but maybe they use some other technology. Maybe you can give them very high priority and actually notify one of your salespeople in Slack to say, hey, someone's in the funnel right now. Go ahead and pick up the phone and call them if you ask for their phone number, or at least send them some sort of a personal email offering a calendar schedule. Or one step above that is actually redirecting people that come through. And if Clearbit finds the information that you want them to find, you can redirect them to a calendar page, whereas everybody else may go to a general success page, something like that.
Because you're at the top of the funnel, you're addressing a wide audience and your message will typically be too generic to have good conversion rates. So you're going to have to segment. I can see 3 ways of doing this. You can use triggers based on how people react. So you'd send an email saying like, here's some free stuff, here's some content, and then you can, segment based on if their lead opened, clicked, etc. The problem is you're committing to a message and you're not very targeted. So you might lose a lot of prospects in the process. The second option is to ask them additional questions during the initial signup. This will definitely decrease your click to lead conversion rate, but ultimately it should increase your overall conversion rate into, paying customers. That's generally what you're going for. Just make sure you ask only questions that look like they're useful to bring value. Just for example, like asking how many employees are in your company, that just thinks of lead enrichment. But I mean, if you can get that information easily, there's no way in asking your user. The last option is to use Clearbit to automatically enrich your signups and get the information that you get that allows you to segment properly.
Yeah, you kind of keep the funnel very light from the user standpoint and leverage this type of technology to make sure the user experience is still very one-to-one. Now, I have a specific situation where we are leveraging a bot to kind of filter traffic and ask these questions. And the user experience is good. It's not great, but it's good. So if they come in after hours, they interact with the bot and the bot asks them the pre-qualification questions and funnels them to the right designation based on how they answer those questions. Now, this is a much more intuitive and high quality user experience than having them go through more steps in the Q&A process. So if you do have a Clearbit account and you do use Integromat, or if you need help with this, we can help you out, but definitely leverage technology that you have to make top of the funnel experience on the user side very low fidelity. They see exactly what they should see. Your sales team gets the proper notifications and the proper priorities. All that happens programmatically so that your sales system and your marketing automation system can be as effective as possible, lower your customer acquisition costs. So Axel, why don't you give us a quick conclusion and then we'll let listeners know how to find you and what we have to offer them.
Like you mentioned, I mean, this can be used for very basic nurturing, just sending the right email or that kind of thing. But also for some very advanced cases. Generally, the thing is you see a lot of data enrichment, either as you say, like at the very, very top before you launch a very specific campaign, or in CRM processes when people are actually already users, which is also very important. The main idea here is that you can really improve and sort of customize your message way earlier in your funnel and decrease your overall CAC. Ideally, you want to treat prospects as well as you're treating your users. When used on nurturing sequences, this will definitely increase your conversion rates, which is in itself is pure marginal gain because paid for those signups ultimately. So might as well make the most of it. You could consider this using for at any step of your funnel, really. You mentioned that enrichment is done a lot before drip campaigns or that kind of thing. You can do that at any point. If you're doing SaaS, you can use it for activation. The main idea really is to get the right message and the right channel based on your contact's information. Thing is, you don't want to ask too much information. Ultimately, this really allows you to find the right information to target the right people with the right message without them even knowing they're giving you this information.
I love it. Listeners can connect with Axel on LinkedIn. I'm showing his LinkedIn profile, but we'll add it here on the article page and in the notes. Now, if you want to check out Send in Blue, it's just sendinblue.com. Definitely check that out. Axel has been kind enough to offer our users a gift for listening and checking out the tool. So, Axel, why don't you tell them how to take advantage of that?
Yeah, so you can just click the link in the description and we'll flag that and make sure that we push the right offer. You'll get a message when you get to the website.
Yeah, and I believe you're going to deploy it using one of my favorite intercom features. That's awesome. So we'll check that out. I'm excited. So send me that link. I'll add it to the notes. And thank you again, Axel, for joining us. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, thank you, man.
90% of
Conversational marketing
they didn't see you,
I
man.
think a real game changer.
The marketing automation discussion.